Yes, ma'am.
How long would you say they were there for?
10, 15 minutes.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Ross?
Thank you, Your Honor. Sergeant Merriman, are you familiar with where the car accident was?
I am familiar that there was, I later found out that there was a car accident.
On
but
Bramall and Outer Drive?
I am familiar with that area, yes.
Being familiar with that area, could you tell the court if there are any 24-hour businesses open at 1 to 4 o'clock in the morning?
I believe there is. The gas station right there at the corner.
That being the BP gas station?
Yes, sir.
And that's on the corner of?
Outer Drive and Warren. Or no, I'm sorry, Ann Arbor Trail and Warren.
And how far is that from Bramall? How many blocks? 2?
I would say 2 or 3 blocks.
Any other businesses come to your mind that someone could seek relief or help?
No, not that I could think of. There's a party store over there that's closed.
Any bars?
The bars are there, but this was for...
No, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm talking about after the car accident.
Well, the bars, there is, I think, a bar called JP's Lounge or something to that sort. It may have been open, but...
You're not sure. The party stores could have also been open at 1 o'clock?
Could have been, but I don't know what time that party store closes.
There aren't any missions or shelters there, are there?
Pardon me?
Are there any missions or shelters that the homeless can go to along there?
Not that I know of, sir.
Any churches opened all night?
Not, I don't believe so.
Did you make a written report of what you saw at the scene
Yes,
of the
sir.
shooting?
Yes, sir.
And that was submitted to Officer Gurka, Officer in Charge Gurka?
That was
Detective Gurka?
submitted to the Detective Bureau.
Okay. Did you ask Mr. Wafer any questions yourself?
Yes, sir.
And what did you ask him?
I asked him a couple of preliminary questions just to assess the situation at the very start so we would know what we had.
Nothing about the shooting?
Pardon me?
Did you ask him anything about the shooting?
I asked him what happened.
Okay. 1 second. At all times, did Mr. Wafer fully cooperate with you and other officers? He did everything he was instructed to do?
Yes, sir.
And he answered all your questions fully? To your satisfaction?
Yes, sir.
You didn't think he was trying to hide anything?
Objection, counsel speculation.
I think he's a trained officer. He's a sergeant in Dearborn Heights Police Department. I think he knows when someone is being evasive or not telling everything that they know. You didn't become a sergeant for not being able to detect those things.
Well, it doesn't even lie detector either, Judge.
No.
And it would be opinion. Really.
Well, it's his opinion.
I'm going to sustain the objection unless you want to ask him to testify as to his body language or demeanor.
Did Mr. Wafer answer all your questions immediately?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you put his answers in your report?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you put everything that he said in your report?
No, sir.
What right have you left out?
I didn't put exactly what he said. I put what he said from my recollection, what he said.
Well, you summarized it then?
Yes, sir.
Not his exact words. Okay. I have no other questions.
Redirect?
Nothing further. Judge, I have 2 more witnesses that are going to be rather lengthy and...
Yeah, well, at this point, it's about 12:30. We're gonna convene for lunch, and we'll be back at 1:45. How's that? Okay. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, may we put something on the record? We do not have, the defense does not have a copy of this last officer, Sergeant McMahon's statement, his police report, and his notes that he testified that we have something that Detective Sergeant Gertho wrote up, but nothing from that officer.
It starts on page 12 of 23 on the full report and goes on to page 13.
Okay, Your Honor.
So for the record, she does have it.
You can do that, Your Honor.
All right, 1:45?
Thank you, Judge.
Court is adjourned.
Good. What are you doing?
See you. But, this way. Again. You got ready to take it?
Yeah.
You got a bill?
And how are you employed?
With the City of Dearborn Heights,
And how long have you worked with the City of Dearborn Heights?
26 years.
And has that all been with the police department?
Yes.
And are you the officer in charge of this case?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell me how it was that you became involved in this particular case?
Received a phone call advising me of the circumstances surrounding a shooting on Outer Drive,
Do you recall approximately what time you would have received that call on the 2nd of November?
4:30ish.
Okay. In the morning?
Yes.
And once you received that phone call, what did you do?
I responded to the police station, Dearborn Heights.
And what happened after that?
At the police station, one of the other detectives had related how they listened to the 911 call that dispatcher Peppers had testified to, and wrote that out on a piece of paper for me about what was said, what the homeowner had said.
Did you then respond to 16812 West Outer Drive?
Yes, I did.
And what did you observe when you made that location?
Went out on, I believe it was Sergeant McMahon handed me a consent to search form that Officer Gonzalez had completed, and it was signed by Mr. Wafer.
Once you had received that consent to search form, did you make any, start with the general observations when you arrive at the scene?
Yes, out on the porch.
Okay. Out of the porch, did you make any observations?
Yes, there was a black female, young, with a gunshot wound to the face. She was lying face up, and her feet were maybe just a few feet from the front door and the brick of the home.
Showing you what's been admitted as People's Exhibit number 14. And it's up on the board as well, but does People's 14 fairly and accurately show where her feet were positioned when
Yes.
you saw her?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And when you make that scene, there are other police officers already there?
Yes, there are.
And is the scene secured?
Yes, it is.
When you arrived there, had anybody from the Dearborn Heights Police Department gone into the home at that point?
They said they had not.
Okay. Do you then go into the home?
Yes,
And how do you gain entry to the home?
through the side door.
And was that side door unlocked?
It was unlocked, yes.
When you go through the side door, where do you proceed to once you get inside the home?
proceeded through the kitchen, then went to the back of the home. What I was looking for was to see if the concern, did the homeowner know the victim on the porch?
Were you able to find anything inside the home that in any way suggested that he knew who she was?
No.
Did you find anything inside the home that in any way suggested that Ms. McBride had been inside the home?
No.
Were you able to make any observations of that side door in terms of whether or not there was any damage to the door?
There did not appear to be any damage, no signs of any sort of forced entry.
At that side door, is there a screen door as well as a more firm outer door?
Yes, there is.
Did you look at both the screen door as well as that firm outer door?
Yes.
Was there any damage to that screen door?
I didn't see any damage to the screen. I don't recall if it was a screen or if there was a glass in there.
Okay. You indicated that you went to the back of the house. Is that right?
Yes, inside the interior.
Did you ever make it toward the front of the house?
Yes, I did.
When you get inside the front of the house, is the front door open?
Front door is open.
And is there a secondary door attached to the front of the house?
There's a screen door. The screen door was locked. The screen door and frame, and then the screen itself was dropped down.
All right. Let's take a look at some photographs, if we can. Showing you what's been marked as people's proposed exhibits 15 through 41. Maybe take a minute and just flip through these,
Okay.
and we'll talk about them.
Okay.
Have you had an opportunity to look at people's proposed exhibits 15 through 41?
Yes, I have.
And do those pictures fairly and accurately portray the scene as you saw it on that evening?
Yes.
And move the omission of people's 14 through 41?
No
Sorry,
objection.
15 through 41.
No objection, excuse me.
So the record's clear, 15 through 41?
Yes.
May I make a
Some of those photographs, were they taken
Later.
approximately 2 or 3 days later?
the 8th, and I believe some were taken on the 11th.
Okay. Did those pictures then accurately portray what those objects look like on the 8th and on the 11th?
Yes.
Now, let's start with...
Hold on, before any comment as to the...
No, we'll go into that cross-examination, which I'm sure we are. So it is.
Thank you. Now let's start with people's exhibit number 15. Do you have 15 there?
Yes.
Okay, tell us what we're looking at here on people's 15.
From the outside, looking in at Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun in the vestibule area of the outer drive address.
Now, is that inside the home?
That's inside the home, and this is looking out through the screen.
Okay,
looking
so
outside
that
in.
picture would have been taken from a vantage point in terms of if you're standing on the front porch where Ms. McBride's body would have been,
Yes.
looking into the home.
Yes.
So, in showing you people's exhibit number 12, if we can zoom in, please, on the door. That photograph that we just looked at is simply looking through this door.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Now, this front door, was it open when you saw it?
Yes.
Okay, and you had indicated that nobody else had gone into the home as far as you knew.
As far as I knew, nobody had been inside.
Okay. And now the screen door itself has a frame, is that right?
Yes,
And then there's a screen insert that goes
into the
into the door.
door.
Was that screen out of its place?
Yes.
Okay. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's move on. Okay, moving on to People's Exhibit number 16. Tell us what we're looking at here.
It's the same screen door.
The screen, is that the position that it was in when you saw it?
Yes.
Okay. People 17. What are we looking at here?
The same screen door.
And is there what appears to be a large hole in that screen?
Yes.
Now, as it relates to this exhibit, can you see where there is some what appears to be a darker black on the side of the screen itself, to the
Yes.
right of the screen?
Yes.
What is that?
I'm not sure.
What did it appear to you to be when you looked at it?
It could be maybe some sort of fluid, maybe.
Okay. It looked like fluid to you. Did it look like blood?
I couldn't tell that. So.
Okay. When you looked at the screen itself, did it have anything on it?
It had the upper portion up above it, up to the left of the hole, was a piece of like tissue.
Human tissue?
Yes.
Did there appear to be any damage to the handle of that screen door?
No.
Did there appear to be any damage to that main door that's in this picture open and headed toward the back of the picture?
No.
Any damage to the locks or the locking mechanism?
No.
Moving on. Moving on to People's Exhibit number 18. What are we looking at here?
That would be the shotgun as it lay inside the home.
Is that the front door that is open there?
Yes.
Up against it looks to be like a box for a fan.
Yes.
And then there's a toaster oven to
Yes.
the left of the gun.
Yes.
That area, I'll call it the vestibule, for
Mhm.
lack of a better term, is that a step down, a step up? It looks like it may have
It's a
some sort
step
of
down,
step down. Approximately how much of a step down?
a few inches.
Okay. People's Exhibit 19.
So another close-up of the shotgun.
Okay, moving on. People's 20.
Another close-up with the serial number of the same shotgun.
Okay. 21.
This would be a round that was ejected from that shotgun, a spent round.
When the gun was recovered, was this round still in the weapon?
Yes.
And did you physically eject it, or did somebody else eject it?
Another Sergeant Wendrowski did.
Okay, were you with Sergeant
I
Wendrowski?
stood right there.
And is this just on the floor, then in the living room area?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. What are we looking at here?
The same round.
Okay, just a different picture of it?
Yes.
Okay. 23.
This would be a gun case. of
Where did you
fabric.
locate that in?
That would be, I believe, in a back bedroom.
Okay, approximately how far from the front door would this gun case have been?
Within 40 feet.
Okay, moving on. To 24,
The same gun case.
different view.
Yes.
Moving on to 25. What are we looking at here?
That's, I'm standing at the front door with the screen in place.
And what is that yellow thing?
Is that a tape measure?
And what are you doing in this particular photograph?
I just wanted to measure with the screen back in place where the hole was in relation to the inside of the home.
And what was holding that screen in place within that frame?
Just the little lip at the bottom. It slides into the top. There was a small tab, and then it rests in a small lip at the bottom of the storm door.
That tab at the top, could you tell us what kind of material that tab is made out of?
I thought it was metal. The ones my screen door was metal, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so it was just that one tab at the top, and then it was resting on a lip on the bottom?
Yes.
Okay. And that's how it properly fit within that frame screen?
Yes.
At a frame door. Okay. And you indicated that you measured from what would be the floor of the landing that you're standing on up to the hole?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to People's Exhibit number 26. Is that just in the picture of you
Just
measuring?
trying to, yes.
To get the hole?
Yes.
Moving on to 27. Is that a picture looking outward?
Outward toward the street.
Okay. Moving on to 28. What are we looking at here?
This is a close-up, but I can't tell whether it's inside or outside.
All right, so you can't tell whether or not the...
If it's,
but did you take any measurements from the outside, or did you do all of your measurements?
I did them from the inside.
Okay, so this would be inside looking out at the screen? Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right, and then to the right of that, what are we looking at? What are you measuring there?
That would be, to the right of that is the hole.
All right, and that would be approximately 56 inches?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry,
And
that
60,
is
66.
66 inches, or 5 feet 6 inches. Is that right?
Yes.
According to the tape measure in the picture.
Yeah, but I'm not, I don't recall if that from the outside in or the inside out.
Okay, moving on to picture number 29. What are we looking at here?
That's looking from the outside in.
Okay, and that's to be you?
Yes.
All right, now moving on to 30. What are we looking at here?
Just another picture of the screen, the center of the hole at 67 inches.
Okay, moving on to 31.
The address and the light on outside.
Okay. And what is that to the right of the light?
The address.
I'm talking about that. Is that the window?
The window, yes.
Does that window open up, or when you're inside the home, does that window go into like the living area of the home?
Yes, the front room.
Okay, moving on to 32.
This is the screen door in the basement.
Now, at some point, well, on or about November 11th, did you go back to the Outer Drive home?
Yes, that would be the start of Exhibit 31.
Okay, so on November 11th, you went back to the home. What was the purpose of going back?
To get the screen door and the screen itself.
All right, and this is, in fact, the screen? Where'd you find it
Yes,
at?
that was in the basement.
Okay, so it was no longer on the door.
No.
What was in the door in place of it?
There was a glass door that was held in by one tab at the top.
Okay. And did you also take that glass insert, would that have been into the same frame that was used with this screen door that we saw from the scene photographs?
Yes.
Moving on to number 33.
Just a close-up of the damage to the screen.
Okay. 34.
This would be the front door. Was dusted for fingerprints.
Okay. Were any prints lifted?
None were. I can't recall. There may have been. I don't believe on the front door there were any lifted.
Okay. Do you know if the screen itself was dusted for prints?
Screen itself was too.
Were there any usable prints found on the screen?
No.
Moving on to People's Exhibit number 35.
This would be the door lock.
Was there any damage to the door lock
No.
or to the handle itself?
No.
Moving on to People's 36.
That would be the side door.
Moving on to 37. What are we looking at here in 37?
I believe this is still the side door. Well,
There appears to be some...
actually it's... That could be the rear door.
Okay. On that photograph, it appears as though there's some... Do you know what that is in the middle of the door?
Powder.
Is that gunshot, or strike that, is that fingerprint powder?
Fingerprint powder, yes.
Okay. Used to develop fingerprints? Do you know if any prints were taken on this particular door?
No.
Okay. Moving on. To 38.
That's one of the doors again. I'm not sure which one.
Any damage to that door?
No.
Moving on to 39.
This is the rear room, the furthest room to the rear of the house, and this is just looking inside out.
Okay. Any damage to that door?
No.
Moving on.
And this would be another door. I would assume that this 39, this Exhibit 40 would go with 39.
Okay.
And there's no damage to it, the locks.
Okay. And 41?
And I would assume that's the same door.
Okay. How much time did you spend at the West Outer Drive home that evening?
Maybe 45 minutes.
And what all did you do while you were there?
First look to see if there was any evidence that the victim knew Mr. Wafer, and again looked for any sort of, was there a computer, was there any signs of any entertainment, any signs of something printed out, any sort of wanted, any signs of drugs or some sort of exchange of money or relationship, that type of thing.
Did you find any evidence of any of that?
No.
You indicated that you took a number of measurements in terms of the screen doors and things like that.
Yes.
Were you able to make a determination if the porch sat lower than the landing inside the door?
It was about 5 inches lower than the porch.
Did you recover or take into custody that gun?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you do with that gun once you took it into custody?
Placed it on evidence, and then it was eventually taken to the Michigan State Police lab.
For the record, the weapon has already been checked by your court officers. I'm going to ask that you approach Detective Sergeant Wafer with that weapon. Do you recognize what's been marked as people's proposed exhibit number 53?
Yes.
What is that?
That's the Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun that was in the vestibule or landing of the Outer Drive, Mr. Wafer's home on Outer Drive.
I move for the admission of people's proposed exhibit number 53.
No objection, Your Honor.
So moved.
Thank you. Now, after you left the scene, what did you do?
After I left the scene, went back to the station to discuss with Lieutenant Sirotowski, who had been interviewing Mr. Wafer. I had a quick question for him.
At that point, then, have you identified who the young lady is on the porch?
The young lady had identification in her pocket. However, due to her injuries, I wasn't sure. I couldn't say for certain that that was her.
Based on the limited information that you have, do you attempt to make notifications of the family members?
Yes, yes.
What do you do?
Respond to an address which wasn't a correct address. Then we responded to the McBride address.
Yeah, did you make notifications of the family?
Yes, I spoke with her mother.
Did they give you some identifying information in terms of being able to identify Ms. McBride without the use of, because of the damage to
We
her
talked
face?
about a tattoo. I can't remember what it said, but she did have a tattoo on her shoulder, I believe.
All right. On November 4th, 2013, did you go to B&F Towing?
Yes,
Is that located in the city of Detroit?
yes.
And what was your purpose in going to B&F Towing?
To recover Renisha McBride's cell phone.
To show you what's been marked as people's proposed exhibits number 55, 56, and 60. Have you had an opportunity to review those?
Yes.
And what are those pictures of?
That would be the vehicle that Renisha's parents said she was driving that evening, that had been involved in an accident on Bramall Street in Detroit.
I'd move the addition of peoples 55, 56, and 60.
No objection, Your Honor. That's 55, 56, and 60?
Yep.
Thank you.
So moved. All three of those exhibits are the vehicle?
Yes.
Let's start with people's exhibit number 55 if we can. Is this a vehicle that you knew to be associated with the car accident in Ms. McBride?
Yes, it is.
Were you able to determine who this vehicle was registered to?
Yes.
Who was it registered to?
I believe it was registered. I'd have to look at my notes.
Okay.
So.
Would it have been somebody in your McBride family?
In the family, yes.
Okay. And was this the condition that the vehicle was in when you saw it?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to people 56. What are we looking at here?
It would be the windshield of the vehicle and from the inside.
Oop, nope, not that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the airbag of the vehicle that had activated.
This would have deployed in this particular case?
Pardon?
It had deployed the airbag?
Yes, yes.
Okay, moving on to people 60.
And that would be the windshield of the vehicle.
Okay, and can you tell us what that is in the middle of the windshield?
Just some spidering from impact.
Okay. It appeared to be an impact, site of impact to you?
Yes.
Did you recover her cell phone from the vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And where was that cell phone located at within the vehicle, do you recall?
Yeah, it was plugged in, and it was the console or next to the console.
Do you recall what kind of condition the phone was in?
The phone had a small crack on it that went up to the data port.
Now, on November 8th, 2013, were you part of executing a search warrant at the defendant's house?
Yes.
What was the purpose of executing a search warrant on the 8th?
Just to look for the ammunition related to that was found in the shotgun ammunition, any other firearms, any evidence that Mr. Wafer had, knowledge, experience of firearms, firearm targets, the bill of sale, anything related to the Mossberg shotgun.
Just approach showing you with the marked people proposed exhibits 50, 51, and 52. You can take a look at those for me.
Yes.
Did you get an opportunity to look at those?
Yes.
And what do those represent?
This would be items related to the Mossberg shotgun, a bill of sale, firearm responsibility in the home pamphlet, firearms safety depends on you pamphlet, an NRA pamphlet, the Mossberg butt stock.
Do those pictures fairly and accurately represent what you retrieved on the 8th of November?
Yes.
I move for the admission.
No objection, Your Honor.
So moved.
Thank you. Let's start with people's exhibit number 51? 50. Starting with the middle here, what is this right here that we're looking at, this big black thing?
That would be the butt stock to the Mossberg shotgun.
What is a butt stock?
That would be just a longer stock, something you could put in your shoulder, something that gives you more stability and something that would absorb the recoil from the gun.
Okay. What is this item up here?
That is the bill of sale.
Okay. Next to the bill of sale, what is this item?
That would be firearms safety depends on you pamphlet.
Okay. This item here?
It's firearms responsibility in the home pamphlet.
I believe you said something about the NRA?
Yes.
Okay. That'd be the National Rifle Association?
Yes.
Okay. What is this here? This
That's
white-
the owner's manual, I believe.
Okay. And where did you locate all these items at?
They were in a file. You can see the corner of the file cabinet, the upper right-hand corner.
Is here?
Yes.
And they were in that file cabinet?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to people's exhibit number 51. What are we looking at here?
51 is a hallway closet, and what's flipped down is kind of a hidden compartment where ammunition is kept.
Okay. The shotgun shell that was ejected from the shotgun the night of November 2nd, did it match either one of the items in this picture?
It matched the green box, the estate cartridge.
Okay, so this shell casing that was ejected from the weapon on 11/2 matches the type of ammunition that was found in People's Exhibit number 51?
Yes,
And that would be this green box here.
yes.
Okay. Did you take an inventory of this green box in terms of how many shells were in there versus how many it came in?
Yes, I did.
And what'd you find?
It was 20, I'd have to look at my notes again.
Okay. Is there something that would refresh your memory?
I have my report.
Okay. Take a minute to refresh your memory, if you would, please.
It would be, the estate buckshot, it had 20 live rounds and there was one spent round.
Okay. In that box itself?
Yes.
Do you know when the gun was recovered, you indicated that there was a gun case, is that right?
Yes.
That was also recovered. Were there any spent shell casings in that gun case?
I don't know if it was spent, but
Or live?
I believe there might be a live one in there.
Okay. Moving on to People's Exhibit number 52. What are we looking at here?
That's the box of estate shotgun shells.
Going back to People's Exhibit number 50, as part of what you recovered, did you also find a gun lock for that Mossberg?
Yeah, that would be it's yellow in that plastic bag.
Is that this right here?
Yes.
Okay. And is that plastic bag, is that where it zip
Yes,
closes?
yes.
Back on November 2nd, 2013, do you recall what the weather conditions were like?
It was 45 degrees and there was a light, steady rain.
Do you have any independent memory in terms of when it started raining that night?
No, I don't.
Do you recall what the lighting was like at that corner of Dolphin and West Outer Drive?
It was dark on the porch. There was a street light, several street lights.
So there were several street lights in that area?
I believe on either side of Dolphin, on Outer Drive.
And do you know if that front door had a peephole?
Yes, it does.
In terms of the federal ammunition that you found that matched the casing that was ejected from the gun the night of Ms. McBride's death, were you able to tell what type of ammunition it was?
Like it says on the ammunition itself, says it's like a number 27 buckshot.
Okay, would that be number 4 buckshot with 27
Number
pellets?
4 buckshot with 27 pellets. Yes.
Okay. In terms of the 27, is that stamped right on the shell itself?
Yes.
And what does that 27 indicate?
The 27 small pellets inside of the round itself.
Okay, so the round itself goes into the gun, and there are 27 little individual BBs in each, or pellets inside each one of these shell casings.
Yes.
I have nothing further. Thank you. Oh, can you collect my photographs from me, though? I'm going to take the weapon too as well.
Good afternoon, Detective Gurka. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Thank you. I want to go back over some of the points on your testimony this afternoon. We'll start off with the screen door. You put the screen door back in the frame before you took measurements?
Yes.
And why was that?
I wanted to see what the measurements would be with the frame in it. just in case the frame was out of it. If the gun was fired with the frame down, with the screen out of it. Not really sure how accurate I could get as far as a height or an angle of the gun. If I put the screen in, I just wanted to make sure I had that measurement of the screen in.
Did you take measurements with the screen in the condition you found it when you approached the home,
No,
the first round? Okay. You don't know how that screen got knocked down, do you?
no, I don't.
Okay. Did you examine the inside, the burgundy door, at any time?
Yes,
Okay. Did you see scratch marks from the screen on that door?
not that night. No,
And at a later time?
on the side door, I believe.
No, on the front door.
On the front door, no, I don't recall any scratches.
You don't recall the marks, the scratches on the paint in the front door? That Sergeant, excuse me 1 second. Paranello?
I do recall that, but that was when we dusted. I believe that was at a later date.
Okay.
But it looked like an imprint from the screen.
From the screen, like the screen had been knocked into that door?
I'm not sure if that was the front door or the side door.
Okay. Assuming that Sergeant Paranello would say the front door, that could explain how that door got knocked off or out of
You
the
have
frame?
to object, you can't comment on somebody else's proposed testimony. It's
Okay.
proper.
Did you see any plastic clips that held the screen in at any time during that night of November 2nd or any later times that you executed search warrants?
Just inside the house.
This is how. You didn't see any on the porch?
No,
Okay. Did you see any on the lawn?
no.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor? Yes. Oh, I'm going to hand you a bag of 3 clear plastic broken clips.
Okay.
Do you remember being at Mr. Wafer's home on November 15th of this year?
Yes.
That was the execution of your 3rd search warrant?
That was just the follow-up for the bump stop from the search warrant from the 11th.
Do you remember me picking those up from the porch and showing those to you?
Yes.
Okay. And are these the same type of clips that you saw, the one clip in the door?
No.
What kind of clip was in the door when you saw you said there was one clip on the top still?
Top, like just a large on the second, just, or on the second, just the one large clip.
And what type of clip was that? Was that plastic?
Plastic, or it could have been aluminum, like a clear plastic, or aluminum.
It could have been something like this, or
Something
this
like
be
that.
partly. Okay.
Yeah.
When did you take fingerprints of the front door?
Fingerprints were taken on the 11th.
11th? 9 days after
Yes.
this incident? Why weren't they taken on the 2nd?
Why weren't they taken on the second? As far as fingerprints, if you have somebody pounding or knocking, really not sure. You're not going to get any fingerprints.
Well, why did you take them later on the 9th? I mean, the 11th?
Direction of the prosecutor's office.
You didn't expect to find anything after 9 days of being exposed to the elements, did you?
You could. It's always worth a chance.
But you did not, in fact, find
Did not.
anything. Did you happen to examine the peephole on the front door?
I did not.
Okay. So, to your knowledge, in any of your reports, did any officer look to see if that was broken?
I believe Officer Paranello did later.
Is that in your report that it was broken?
I didn't say it was broken.
No. Is it in your any of your reports?
Is any
Your investigator's report?
If Officer Parnell put it in his report, it would be in his report.
Okay. Thank you.
Sergeant, when you say when it's broken, what are you referencing? People?
People.
Okay.
We're talking about the people.
Yes.
Detective. Mhm. You stated in your report, did you not, or I shouldn't say did you not, did you state that you believe this was a close-range shooting?
I think depending on what your idea of close range is,
Now, what is your definition of close range? How many
just
feet?
in this 3, 4, 5 feet.
And you're still of that opinion after hearing the medical
Well,
examiners?
I think the position of her feet,
Mhm.
what she would have been doing if she's knocking or pounding on a door, you're going to be close proximity so your hand can reach the door. That vestibule isn't that large. The gun was fairly long, so the distance in the vestibule to somebody knocking on the door, less than 5 feet.
So you're saying that, speaking of the vestibule first, then I want to move out to the porch, that the end of the barrel of that shotgun would have been pretty close to the screen.
Could, depending whether Mr. Wafer was back up against the wall, if he was back, or if he was forward. I couldn't.
You'd have no way of telling. And did you measure how far Miss McBride's feet were from the door?
No.
So all we have to show for that is the photographs.
Yes.
That's the guesstimate. I want to refer you to your search warrants.
Yes.
If you, do you recall putting in your search warrant that Mr. Wafer had his finger on the trigger when he approached the front door?
I don't recall.
Could you, do you have a copy of your search warrant affidavits?
They would be in my file.
Could you tell me which one?
I think all of them.
Does it all have it?
I think they all have it. I can,
Can you be more specific?
I was sure. On the search warrant affidavit dated November 12, 2013, on the second page of the affidavit on line, I believe that would be line 8 or 9, let me see, 3, line 8, may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
To refresh your memory, I'm going to hand you a copy of the affidavit for search warrant, which I believe you could tell me after you review this. It's basically on the second, I highlighted it.
Okay.
You've refreshed your memory?
Yes.
And that is your signature on that search warrant?
Yes.
Judge, I have to object at this point. I'm not sure what the purpose is of using hearsay statements from a search warrant in terms of where we're going.
Well,
It makes
I wanted
hearsay statements in terms of what the defendant may or may not have been doing, and that appears to be, I'd like to know where we're going with this.
Okay. I want to find out the source and the truth of that statement. It's in the search warrant, contained in the search warrant.
Well, then I think that that might be the question that needs to be asked, and not that you make all,
Okay.
what the statements are.
You've refreshed your memory.
Yes.
Do you recall Mr. Wafer ever telling you that?
No, I didn't know.
Do you remember any officer telling you that that's what Mr. Wafer said or giving you a report showing that?
He had a gun. He had lethal force, which is a shotgun, and the gun went off, meaning his finger was on the trigger.
But that's not all that search warrant statement says, is it? What's the complete thing about the finger on the trigger?
For someone on my front porch banging on my door, that was taken from the 911 call
Okay.
or the interview.
I apologize. Could I approach again, Your Honor? Could I see this for 1 second? Sure. May not be the right one. One second, Your Honor. Let me ask you this, Detective. You have no idea when Mr. Wafer put his finger on that trigger, is that correct?
The only time I know where he put his finger on the trigger is when it went off.
Okay, so that was after the door was open, but you don't know when, if it was a second or a fraction of a second before the trigger was fired. Is that
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So any other statements that he had his finger on the trigger throughout the house or anything like that would be just your speculation, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. You ever take a statement from Mr. Wafer?
No, I did not.
Okay. Get my notes back out. You indicated that you executed 3 search warrants after November 2nd. Is that correct?
2.
Or is there just 2?
2.
I apologize. And those were to secure the gun at one occasion,
Yes.
and then the screen and the door frame,
Yes.
which you still have in possession, right?
Yes.
Okay. You said that you saw what you thought was human tissue on the door.
Yes.
Did you send that to the medical examiner's office to be analyzed?
No.
So I assume that you're not certain that that is what you saw.
It wasn't sent to the medical examiners, but after we recovered it, Corporal Paranello took some swabs and sent those to the state police lab.
Did you get any results back from that?
No.
Just let me interject here. Say, human tissue was found on the door or on the
It's
screen?
done the screen.
He said he observed that, Your Honor. Sorry. That is correct, right? You said you observed it. You didn't take any of that.
I didn't take it.
Did you measure the distance from the front door to the back room where the shotgun was, the closet?
No, I did not.
Okay. But your best guess is about 40 feet?
Yes.
Okay. Were any fingerprints taken of the shotgun shell that was discharged from that Mossberg shotgun?
No.
No? So we don't know definitively who put that shotgun shell in the shotgun?
No.
Okay. Now, there were 3 doors on the house, the front door and 2 side doors, is that correct?
Yes.
A rear side door. You fingerprinted all 3 of those doors?
Yes.
And no results on any of those?
None.
Okay. Did you examine the front doorbell?
I did, yes.
And when did you examine that?
That would have been on the 11th.
On the 11th?
Yes.
And what condition was it in?
It was broken and it did not work.
Did you ask Mr. Wafer when it was broken?
No, I did not.
Okay. Excuse me 1 minute, Detective. Excuse me. Did you search the kitchen area when you were searching for evidence on whether or not Miss McBride had been inside the home?
Look through the kitchen area, yes.
Did you see any alcohol?
No alcohol.
Any beer, anything?
No.
See any evidence of any marijuana?
No drugs.
Smell anything?
Nothing in the refrigerator?
No residue smell?
No.
Okay. No syringes, anything like that?
No.
Okay. Did Dr. Keisha at one time tell you that Miss McBride was shot at close range?
Yes, he did.
He did. And did he explain what close range was, or did you ask him?
No, he didn't. And I did not ask.
Okay. Do you happen to know the measurement of the vestibule from the wall behind the door to the door?
No, but the door is like a standard door, 36 inches. So it was maybe another foot and a half.
So somewhere between 4 and 5 foot?
Yes.
And if the medical examiner, Dr. Kershaw, was correct and this was a straight-on shot, the gun probably would have had to been at least no further than a foot away from that front screen. Is that correct?
Again, well, I don't know. It depends. Since it doesn't have a butt stock,
Mhm.
it's got that pistol grip. Depending how Mr. Wafer was standing, if he was up against the back, it could be a few feet from the door.
Fair enough. You can't really tell.
I don't know.
Okay. I didn't know if there was a standard way to hold those guns because it had the pistol grip, if you held those in front of you or...
It's not up to your face.
I have no other questions. Thank you, Detective.
Detective Burke, even if there is a standard way to hold a shotgun with a pistol grip or with a butt, can you tell us how the defendant was when he fired that gun?
No, I couldn't.
Can you tell us how Ms. McBride was when she got shot in the face?
No, I can't.
Can you tell us how close she was to the door?
Not. I can tell you she wasn't further than but a few feet from where her feet were.
Because of the size of the porch and where she landed.
Yes.
But you have no way of knowing if the defendant was right on the door, if he was standing back from the vestibule.
No.
Did that front door opened toward whoever was on the inside,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you had to at least be out of the way of the door in order to open it.
Yes.
You indicated that once the screen was recovered and transported to the Dearborn Heights Police Department, there were samples that were taken by Officer Parinello.
Yes.
And those would have been samples taken from off the screen as well as on the side of the screen?
Screen in the frame, yes.
Okay. And those samples did not go to the medical examiner's office, but they went to the Michigan State Police.
Yes.
To your knowledge, is it the Michigan State Police that does the scientific analysis in terms of DNA?
Yes.
Typically, how long do those results take to get back, in your experience?
Months and months.
Did you have any reason to believe that the doorbell had been used in this particular case?
No.
Did you test the doorbell when you went back on any of these days?
On the 11th, yes.
Okay, it did not work. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Could you tell whether or not, based on your experience as a police officer, could you tell whether or not that screen was in at the time that the shots were fired or out at the time the shots were fired?
I could not tell that.
Why not?
I just couldn't.
Are there things about this that you don't know that would
Yes.
give you the answer to that question?
Possibly.
Such as where the defendant is standing,
Yes.
how the defendant is holding the gun,
Yes.
where Ms. McBride is at the time that she shot?
Yes.
Are all of those things necessary for you to make an intelligent decision in terms of whether or not that screen was in or out?
Yes.
No, I have nothing further.
Everyone in this courtroom looked at the photo of Ms. McBride's feet facing the door. You just said you did not measure them. It looked much closer than 3 feet to me. Is it?
So I would say a couple of feet,
Could have been even 18 inches, foot and a half?
possibly.
Okay. Thank you. I have no other questions.
I have some questions for you. Could we pull up Exhibit 16, please?
Yes.
It's a street door. Now, if I'm looking at that picture, it looks like the screen door is off, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you saw it in that condition, or you put it in that
No,
condition?
it was in that condition when I arrived at the scene. And it was in that condition when the photograph was taken.
Okay, so you don't know how it got to that position?
No.
The ammo, you found it inside of a closet, you said?
Closet, and there was like a hidden compartment.
When you say closet, like...
Hallway closet.
Okay.
Like
Where was the ammo in relation to the gun case?
a gun case. It was how many feet? The gun case was in another bedroom, 15 feet,
So,
20
you
feet.
found the gun case in a bedroom.
Yes.
Did you actually go into that bedroom?
I did, yes.
And do you know whose bedroom that was? In other words, at what time did you go into that bedroom?
It was in the morning.
Was the bed made? Was it not made? Was there a bed in
When
there?
I say the bed, no, I believe it was the bedroom. It's like a spare room. There's a TV room.
Okay, so more of a
Another
utility
room.
more than a bed.
Yes. There was a bed in kind of the living room, family room, like a futon, maybe.
But it wasn't a normal bedroom where people actually sleep on a
No.
normal basis. That hole in the screen, was it determined how the hole got there?
I would just assume it was from the shotgun.
And then there's another exhibit, I believe, number 60. I believe we call it the spidering of the window of
The windshield, yes.
of the windshield. Okay, that one right there. Did you determine how that windshield got spidered like that?
I would not know. If I could speculate, like a head injury, somebody's head struck it.
Possibility.
It's a possibility, although maybe it was like that beforehand.
And could you determine if it was fresh or not?
I couldn't tell them.
Now, you said you couldn't find any prints off of any... Well, you found prints on some of the doors? Or no?
Like smudges.
When
But
you went to
nothing-
the lab, nothing came
nothing.
back. But there were actual prints.
No prints, just smudges, and they weren't taken to the lab. We had a Dearborn crime lab from the Dearborn crime lab take a look at them, and there's no point in sending them up because they're smudges.
Smudges produced by...
Maybe a palm moving or a side of the hand, a palm.
As far as the shotgun itself is concerned, was it determined how many times the gun went off?
There was one round, there was just one round in it. One spent round in it.
And how many rounds is that
I
gun?
believe it holds 8.
And as far as the gun itself is concerned as well, are you familiar with that gun?
Just because of this case.
shoot, or is there a locking mechanism, and what needs to be done for that
It
trigger?
does have a safety on it.
So
So
the safety has to be,
taken off.
was the safety on there at the time you saw the gun?
The safety, I believe the safety was off.
Are you familiar with the trigger stuff on that gun?
I'm not.
Anybody have any other questions pursuant to my line of questioning?
I do. Ms. Clark, do you want to go first?
No, go ahead, you go first. I'll save myself until afterward.
Judge Turkey asked you about the hole in the screen. The medical examiner, Dr. Keisha, never said that he found any pieces of wire screen in the skin or wound on Miss McBride, did he?
No.
Okay. So you don't know if the front door screen was open or closed when the shot was fired, do you? You have no way to determine that.
The front door,
Screen.
the screen door?
Yeah.
Was, no, I don't.
So for all we know, Miss McBride may have been holding on to that when she was shot. We don't know.
If the door was,
Half open or...
well, there's tissue on the front, on the screen itself.
But we don't know how that got there. So we don't know, just to clarify, we don't know if the screen door was open or closed when the shot was fired that killed Miss McBride.
With the tissue on the screen, I would say that the door was closed.
But you can't say that with any certainty because that door could have been held partially open and that wound was horrific. Part of the tissue could have went everywhere.
That's a possibility.
Which it did, right?
Yes.
Thank you. I have another question.
When you arrived at that location, nobody else had gone into the scene, right? Is that what you told us? Was that screen door frame locked when you got there?
Yes.
You had to physically unlock it in order to be able to exit out that front door?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you've indicated that there was what appeared to be tissue as well as some kind of substance on not only the frame, but on the screen as well.
Yes.
Did you have any information that anybody else had been shot on that porch?
No.
The hole that is in that screen, is that consistent with having been shotgun fired through it?
It could be.
You indicated that there were smudges on all three of the doors.
At least two of them.
Okay. These smudges, were they in fact fingerprints that were smudged?
I couldn't tell that.
So they're just smudges?
Smudges?
So could I don't know, like a soccer ball bouncing off the door cause a smudge?
Could.
Okay, so there's a lot of things that could create a smudge,
Yes.
other than simply pushing on a door or banging on a door, which you've indicated in this court.
Yes.
Do you know if there were actual fingerprints that were lifted, or do you simply know that there were no usable prints found on any of the doors?
No usable prints.
Okay.
There-
So the bottom line is there's no usable prints, right?
If there were usable prints, they would have been lifted and placed on evidence.
Okay, and that was not, there were no
Yes.
usable prints found in this case?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Actually, I have one more question. You arrived at the scene how long after the call?
I arrived probably an hour.
Did you ever see the defendant that night? That morning?
I did see him later on at the station for just a moment.
Do you recall what he was wearing?
I don't recall what he was wearing right now. No.
Pajamas, clothes?
Clothing.
Yes, that's right.
Judge, can we approach?
Yes.
Yeah. You want me to call her?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's your witness.
Yeah. Your Honor, at this time, the prosecution has allowed the defense to call a witness out of order, and at this time the defense wishes to call Paris Pace.
Right up this ramp. Right up there. Yep. Give me 1 second, I'll be ready. Please stand and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear affirm that the testimony about the jail will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please speak clearly and loudly into the still microphone.
Okay. Hi, Miss Pace.
Hi,
Can you please state your name for the record?
Paris Pace.
Right. And how old are you, Miss Pace?
I'm 21.
Right. I want to direct your attention back to November 2nd of this year. Did you witness a car accident?
Yes.
All right. Approximately what time was this?
I'm maybe like 1 o'clock in the morning.
All right. And where were you?
I was sitting in, I was on Bramall and Warren. I was sitting in front of the house in my car. I was waiting for my boyfriend to get home from work.
Okay. And is that your house?
No, it's his house.
Okay. So you were waiting outside of his house for your boyfriend to come home. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You just have to say yes for the
Yes,
court reporter.
sorry, yes.
And what were you doing in your car?
I was just waiting. He was actually right around the corner, so I had just pulled up a couple minutes before him. So I was just sitting in my car just waiting for him.
Okay. And at any point, did you witness a car accident?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us what happened and what you observed from the beginning?
Yeah, first I was just looking like in my phone, and then I looked up and I seen the car coming. It was coming towards me, so towards Warren. And then I just seen the car, it swerved and it hit the car that was parallel to mine. And then that car was also on the street and it just got pushed up some. And then the other car ended up in the driveway.
Okay. And do you remember the make and model and the color of the car that rear-ended the parked car?
It was a Ford Taurus. It was white. It was a older model, maybe like 2005, maybe. Something.
All right. I don't know what you did. I'm going to show you, oh, right behind you, there's a picture. That's People's Exhibit 55, thank you. Do you recognize that car?
Yes.
And is that the car you saw rear end a parked car on November 2nd?
Yes.
All right. Was this white car speeding down Warren? Was it Warren Avenue that it was on?
She was going kind of fast.
Okay. Do you have any idea how fast she was going? Were there other cars that were passing by?
It was no other cars. I can't say like for sure, but it was kind of fast for like a residential street.
Okay. For you, when you saw the car going down the street, it seemed fast.
Yes.
Okay. And you had stated that you saw this car swerve.
Mm.
Is that a yes?
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. Do you know why this car swerved?
No, I don't know why she swerved.
Okay. Was there anything in the road at the time?
I don't think so.
Okay. Were there any pedestrians? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say because I was looking down at first, so by the time I looked up, it was like kind of happening. It was like fast.
Okay.
So I seen, I don't think it was anything in the streets.
What did you do? How far, approximately, how many feet away was the car accident from where you were sitting?
It was right next to me. I was parallel from the other car.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like right next to me.
Okay, so just right across a residential street.
Yes.
So you were pretty close.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What did you do after the car accident?
I pulled into the driveway, my boyfriend's house. I pulled in the back, and I came out front, and that's when I seen Renisha. And I said, "Are you okay? Was there anyone else in the car?" And she said no. And I just kind of stood out there for a while. I called the police, but I never seen them arrive. I stayed outside for a while, and I never seen anyone like come to the scene.
Okay. Can you describe, now you've called the woman that was driving the car Renisha McBride. Did you know Renisha McBride prior to this car accident?
No, I didn't know her.
Okay. Have you seen photographs of Renisha McBride since the car accident?
Yes.
Is the woman that you saw driving this white car the same woman that you've seen photographs described as Renisha McBride?
From what I can remember, seeing her and looking at her, we weren't that close. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that was her. Like, I remember certain similarities, but not like specifically, but I'm pretty sure that was her.
All right. Did you smell any alcohol on her when you went to talk to her?
No, I wasn't that close to her to smell any alcohol.
All right. What was her demeanor like?
She was shocked. I think she was just in shock more than anything. But when I was talking to her, she was cooperative. I think she was just more shocked than anything, trying to get her mind clear from the accident.
Okay. Did you see Renisha's head hit the windshield?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Were you looking when the car made impact?
Yes.
Was Renisha bleeding?
Not that I know of. I didn't see any blood.
Okay. Did Miss McBride complain of any injuries or being hurt?
No, she didn't complain of any injuries.
Did she walk away from the scene of the accident?
She walked away a couple times, but she came back. So I initially just thought she was trying to clear her mind because there was a lot that happened, and I would have been shocked too. So yeah, she had walked away, but then she came back, and she did that a few times.
Okay. Did you ever try to have her stay at the scene?
I didn't try to have her stay, but it was other people that also witnessed the crash, and they were on that side of the street, so they were kind of interacting with her more than I was. And the last time I seen her, she got in her car, and then she closed the door, and then that was it.
Do you know if Miss McBride was trying to drive that car away from the scene?
I don't think she was trying to drive away. I know we had stayed outside kind of for a while because we were waiting like for police to show up and stuff. And I never ended up seeing police show up. So I think we was all just kind of waiting for like the next step.
Approximately how many people were outside when Miss McBride was out there, who maybe came out of their homes?
It was, I the one guy his car got hit, he came out, and there was 2 neighbors, they came out, and then I was outside, and then maybe like 5 minutes after that, my boyfriend arrived, so he came out, and then his brother and friend came over like a minute after that.
Okay.
So, like 6 people.
Okay, about 6 people. And were the 6 people present outside when Miss McBride was still at the scene?
Yes.
Okay, and were they in areas that would be noticeable for Miss McBride to see?
Well, yeah, because they were talking to her and like interacting with her on that side of the street.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say.
Did you ever see Miss McBride again after she walked away the last time?
Yes, she came back. The last time I seen her was when she got in her car and then she closed the door. And that was the last time that I had seen her.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
You should put up a picture. Okay, do you recognize this area, this face? That being Warren?
Yes, I do. I think that's the church on the end.
Yeah, here's the church, here's Warren, here's Rommel.
Yes.
Okay. And for the record, it's People's Exhibit number 5. Now, you indicated that you're parked on Rommel facing Warren.
Facing away from Warren.
You're facing, okay, so you're facing actually going in this direction.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure if this is oriented to north-south, but at least in terms of this picture, it would be toward the north of the picture.
Yes.
Okay, so Warren is behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes. Yes, sorry.
Now, if I told you that this house right here is the homeowner's house, where would you have been in relationship to the homeowner's house?
Right across.
Is
So-
this house here your boyfriend's house?
Yes.
Okay, so this white house here is where your boyfriend lives?
Yes.
And is that Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
All right. And so you're parked in front of his house with your car facing away from Warren?
Yes.
Now, you testified that Renisha was speeding down Warren. Did you misstate that?
I'm sorry, Bramall.
Okay, so she never saw Ms. McBride driving her vehicle on Warren,
I
right?
never seen her on Warren, no.
You saw her coming down Rommel Street heading toward Warren.
Yes.
Is that right?
Mm,
Now,
yes.
there's an intersection up here of Majestic, right?
Majestic.
Yeah, the very next street up, I believe, is Majestic.
Yes.
Showing you People's Exhibit number 4. This being Rommel and Warren, so you're where you would have been somewhere in this area, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Majestic and Rommel is this first block at the end of the corner. Where would you say that you first saw Ms. McBride's vehicle as it's coming toward you?
It was
Was it north of Majestic or was it south of Majestic?
south of Majestic.
Okay, and so you only observed her for what, maybe 1 or 2 seconds then?
Yes.
Before the impact of the car?
Yes.
And the speed limit in this area is what, 25 miles per hour, do you know?
I think it's 25 for
Okay.
residential.
But you can't tell us how fast she was going, right?
I don't know exactly how fast she was going on.
There were no other vehicles to be able to compare her rate of speed to out there that night, right?
No.
And you testified that it was kind of dark out there?
Yes.
Okay, and you also testified that you were on your phone, you're communicating with your boyfriend. You indicated you're 21 years old?
Yes.
Okay, like most people, are you constantly checking your email, Facebook, checking the internet, that kind of stuff on your phone?
Correct.
So were you doing that night as well?
Yes, I was.
Now, you said that it was dark and you didn't notice anything in terms of if there was a person out there that you may have swerved for, but you could have swerved for a person, right?
It's a possibility.
Or perhaps a cat,
It's a possibility.
or even a dog, right?
Yes.
Okay, you don't know, right?
Yes.
Now, in terms of the accident, you testified that you were directly across the street, parallel to where the impact happened.
Yes.
Now, that vehicle that got struck, was that the black Charger?
Yes.
Was it a black Charger that you saw that got hit?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and so does this picture People's Exhibit number 10, yeah, number 10, is this where the vehicle ended up when you saw it?
Yes.
Okay, up on the curb?
Yes.
Like I think sometimes we refer to that as the berm, the grassy area. And that Ms. McBride's vehicle ended up in the driveway, right?
Yes.
showing you People's Exhibit number 9. Did you see this accident damage on Ms. McBride's vehicle?
I did not see that damage. It was in the driveway, so I only seen the car from the back.
Okay. Going back to People's Exhibit number 5, this aerial shot here. If this is the owners of the vehicle's home, would Ms. McBride's vehicle have been parked in this driveway then? Or would it have been parked in this driveway?
I think, if I can recall, it was the second driveway.
This one here?
Yes.
Okay. Almost directly across from the driveway of your boyfriend?
Yes.
Okay. So you were parked here, and her vehicle ultimately ended up here?
Yes.
Correct? Did you always stay on this side of the street?
Yes, I stayed on that side of the
And
street.
did Ms. McBride ever leave her vehicle and come over to your side of the street to have a conversation with you?
No.
Okay, so any communication that you may have had with her happened in between the streets.
Yes.
Now, when you saw her leave the scene, did she walk heading down toward Warren?
Yes, she did.
Did she cross over to this side of the street, or did she stay on the same side of the street as the accident?
She crossed the street.
Okay, so she crossed the street, and did you see if she went into this area behind the church?
I think because she left and came back a few times, I think the last time she came back from, like, behind the church.
Okay, so how many times did you see her leave and come back to the scene?
Maybe, 3.
3 times. And the last time that you saw her when she came back, she got into the vehicle and she simply sat there?
Yes.
And then you went into the house and went about your evening?
Yes.
Okay. During the time that you indicated that, did you see anybody else in the vehicle with Ms. McBride?
No, I asked her if anyone else was in the vehicle with her, and she said no.
Okay, so are you across the street when you're yelling that to her?
Yes, I was standing in the driveway.
Standing in this driveway?
Yes.
Okay.
And she was walking, she was in the street.
Okay, so at this point, is she in the street directly in front of you?
Not directly in front of me. It was a little further down.
All right. So she's somewhere in this area then, or is she north of you?
She's south of me.
Okay, so she's somewhere down in this area?
Yes.
And are you yelling at her, or are you having a conversation with her?
I kind of yelled over the street, yeah.
Okay. Did you ask her how she was?
Yes, I asked her if she was okay.
And did she respond to you that she was?
She shook her head, yes.
Okay. Did you ever see her holding her head?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Did you ever see her sort of stumbling around, sort of disoriented or discombobulated?
Not necessarily stumbling. Like I said, she just seemed shocked.
Okay. When you were speaking with her, did she ever curse at you?
No.
Yell at you?
No.
Become belligerent or aggressive in any way?
No, not at all.
Did she appear to you to just be shook up from the accident?
Yeah, I think she was just shook up.
Okay. And you indicated that you never really got close enough to her to see if she smelled of alcohol or anything along those lines?
No.
Is it fair to say then that in the dark, if she had been injured, you would not have seen it because you weren't close enough to her?
I would have not seen it. Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever see Ms. McBride speaking with the owners of that vehicle?
I seen her, actually I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you know who owns that vehicle? Are you familiar with the Beasleys?
No, I don't know him personally.
So you wouldn't know them if they were out there, you wouldn't have known who they were anyway?
No.
Okay. Did you ever hear her yelling, cursing, or becoming belligerent with any of the people that were outside?
No, not at all.
Do you recall what she was wearing that evening when you saw her?
I think she had on a hoodie, like a zip-up hoodie, some jeans, and like some black boots.
Okay. And you've since seen pictures of Renisha McBride on TV or the news or something? So
Yeah.
You're fairly confident that's the person that you had contact with that night?
Yes.
In terms of how long were you out there? Did you ever see the police show up?
Never seen the police show up.
Okay. So if the police did in fact show up, you would have already been gone, or at least inside doing your own thing?
Yeah, I stayed outside for a while though. Like right after the accident, I immediately called the police, and I stayed out there for maybe 30 to 35 minutes. And then after I went inside, my boyfriend stayed outside for like an extra 15 minutes, and we never seen anyone show up.
Okay. Do you know if EMS showed up?
No.
Do you know if a flatbed tow truck came to take the car away?
No, I've never seen like anyone show up after that.
When you got up the next morning, did you see... When you got up the next morning, did you spend the night at your boyfriend's house?
Yes.
Okay, when you got up the next morning, did you see this vehicle still parked in the neighbor's across the street yard?
No.
Okay. Did this car appear to be drivable to you?
Right here, no.
I have nothing further.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
What brought your attention to Ms. McBride's vehicle?
Like-
Were you just looking out the window and you saw her, or what?
I just happened to look up. I was just like in my phone, I looked up and it just happened.
You said, was you squealing the fighters or something, or you just looked up and there it was?
What? I was just, no, I didn't hear like a squeal. I was kind of just, I just looked up. Yeah.
And there she was. And then you witnessed
That's when, yeah.
her vehicle going into the park there.
Like I still seen her driving. Like I didn't just look up and then boom. It wasn't like that. It was kind of like I looked up and I kind of seen her coming, and then it happened.
When you were outside, did you witness her talking to any of the other neighbors besides yourself?
I think they were asking her certain questions, but it wasn't like a ongoing conversation.
Okay. I don't want to know what anyone said, but I want to know what you heard. In other words, was any of the neighbors yelling at a high tone of voice or screaming at her?
No, no one was ever yelling. They were more concerned about if she was okay, if anything. Yeah.
All right, give me a step.
Okay, thank you.
May she be excused for the rest of the day?
Yes, thank you.
Just right up there, right? Next to the tree.
Good, Grady. You solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony about the deal will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Please tell us your name, please.
Sean Kolinich
And Mr. Collins, how are you employed?
with the Michigan State Police, Northville Forensic Lab, and the Firearms and Tool Marks Identification Unit.
And how long have you been employed with the Michigan State Police in the Tool Marks Identification Unit?
I have been in the Firearms and Tool Marks Identification Unit since January of 2009.
And in order to work in that particular field, did you have some training or some education?
Yes, I did. I was when I was selected to transfer to that position, I was placed into an apprenticeship program where I worked side by side with another qualified examiner for 2 years before being released to complete my own casework.
Okay, let's go back to even before that. What kind of educational background do you have?
I have a bachelor's degree from Central Michigan University
In what?
in Recreation, Parks, and Leisure Services Administration.
Oh, that sounds like fun. After you completed your bachelor's degree, what did you do?
I had various jobs, but in 1997, I enlisted in the state police, went through their 18-week recruit school, and then upon graduation from that recruit school, I was assigned to the Niles Post in Southwest Michigan.
And did you work then as a Michigan State Police trooper from approximately 1997 until January of 2009?
Yes, I did.
And during that time, what were your typical duties as a trooper?
I served as a typical road trooper, investigations, criminal investigations, traffic. I also was on an undercover drug unit and served as an assistant to the post detective.
Did you ever act as an investigator on crime scenes?
Yes, I did. I received training from the Michigan State Police in crime scene investigation and was a crime scene technician, as we called them at that time, that assisted when the lab wasn't needed.
All right. And after you served as a Michigan State Police Trooper in Niles for approximately 12 years,
Correct.
you indicated that you then began to, or were selected to begin work as a firearms examiner.
That is correct.
How is it that one comes into that position? Do you apply for it? Do you get selected? How does that work?
Correct. It's an application process. Typically within the state, they post these positions out to troopers, and then we can apply for it, and then go through an interview process, and then the selection occurs after that.
And did you go through that interview process, and were you in fact selected?
Yes, I was.
Once you were selected for the program, do you then receive some specialized training specifically as it relates to firearms and tool marks identification?
Yes.
Okay, tell us what that entails.
The program that the Michigan State Police uses is an apprenticeship program. There's an extensive amount of reading and hands-on practical experience, but my program was working side by side with another qualified examiner who had, I want to say, 10 years in the unit at that time. We worked side by side through the entire 2-year period. I'm proficiency tested, and then I was released to complete my own casework.
During that 2-year period of time, are you working on firearms and tool mark identification of evidence?
Correct. Working, again, side by side with that qualified examiner.
Okay. And during that time, and since that time, since 2009 or 11, I guess would be 2011, is that when you were turned loose?
Correct.
Approximately how many pieces of firearms or related evidence did you examine?
That is an astronomical number.
Okay.
I would say from a case standpoint, average of 150 firearms cases per year, and we very rarely have cases that have just one piece of evidence.
Okay. For example, in any one case, if you have a firearm, that's considered one piece?
Correct.
Okay. If you've got 20 shell casings, that's 20 separate pieces?
Correct.
Fired bullets, those are additional pieces?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the amount or the number of pieces of evidence that you've examined during your time, during your training, as well as working on your own, that number is astronomical.
Yes.
In terms of your ability to do your job, you indicated that you're proficiency tested, is that right?
That's correct.
And do you continue to be proficiency tested even today as you sit here?
Correct.
How frequently are you proficient? How often are you tested?
2 times a year in firearms and 2 times a year in tool marks.
And during your training, as well as whenever you started these proficiency testing, have you always qualified or always passed?
Yes, I have.
Now that you're working on your own, is your work peer reviewed?
Yes, it is.
And tell us what it means to have your work peer reviewed.
Anytime we author a report, the report itself needs to be reviewed from a technical standpoint as well as from another, that would be from one examiner, and then another examiner would review it administratively for typographical errors and things of that such. Anytime a identification is made, whether we're identifying fired cartridge cases or bullets to each other or to a firearm, another examiner comes behind us and has to agree with that as well. So they are also reviewing that evidence.
Does that happen in every single case?
Every case that has an identification, the identifications are verified or examined again by another examiner.
And
Every case that a report is authored for is reviewed by 2 different examiners.
Okay. And that happens in every case?
That's correct.
Now, in terms of the lab itself, is the lab certified?
Yes, it is.
Under what?
The association, forgive me, I don't know.
Is it the ASCLD?
ASCLD lab.
And
Thank
is
you.
it also ISO certified?
Yes, yes it is.
In terms of your testifying, have you ever testified as an expert in the area of firearms and tool mark identification?
Yes.
Approximately how many times have you been qualified as an expert?
Approximately 10.
And ever qualified in Wayne County?
All but 1 in Wayne County, yes ma'am.
Okay. One time being someplace else?
Oakland County?
Okay. Have you ever not been qualified?
No, I have not.
At this time, Judge, I'd look at Detective, is it Sergeant?
Detective Sergeant.
Okay. Detective Sergeant Sean Kalanich?
It's actually Kalinich.
Kalanich, I apologize. Qualified as an expert in the area of firearms and tool market identification.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. Now, as it relates to this particular case, did you author 2 reports?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibits number 48 and 49. Can you take a look at both of those for me, please? Have you had an opportunity to review People's Proposed Exhibit number 48?
Yes.
What is People's Proposed Exhibit number 48?
That is case record number 1 for Northville Laboratory number NV13-9886.
Now, as it relates to this particular case, is that the first report that you generated about what you did in this case?
Yes, it is.
I've moved for the admission of People's Proposed Exhibit number 48.
No objection.
So moved.
Now, as it relates to People's Proposed Exhibit number 49, is that the second report that you generated in terms of the work that you did on this particular case?
Actually, this is case record number 3.
Okay?
But that could be because there was a case record from another unit
But then,
that came through.
for example, if something came in for DNA?
Correct.
All right. So even
But I will, however, there was, and I see that you don't have this here, but there is a amended portion of People's Exhibit 48 that had my trigger pull examination on that.
Do you have a copy of that?
I do have a copy of that.
Could you perhaps provide a copy of that to both myself as well as defense counsel?
Yeah.
This report does not have the actual results of the trigger pull on it, is that fair to say?
No, that should have the actual results.
Okay.
That should be the only results on that page.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the reason that there was an amended report for that is trigger pull is not something that our unit typically puts on a report, actually reports out in the part that goes out to the prosecutors and attorneys.
Okay.
So at the request of the prosecutor's office, I created the amended report so that the trigger pull results were documented.
Okay, so the difference between the report that I have shown you and the copy that you just gave me is that the results of the trigger pull are included on this particular report.
That is correct.
And that was done because my office asked you to do that.
Right.
Typically, you don't do that.
Correct.
Okay. So now, in terms of your report, let's talk about the evidence that you received and what you did with it.
Okay.
Okay? Showing you what's been admitted as People's Exhibit number 53. Do you recognize People's Exhibit number 53?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
This is the Mossberg 12 gauge model 500A shotgun that I examined on People's Exhibit 48, item F1.
And what can you tell us about that Mossberg 12 gauge model 500A shotgun?
It is a slide action shotgun that is 12 gauge. That is the caliber of the firearm.
Let's talk about the caliber of the firearm. How is a caliber of a firearm determined?
Caliber is the diameter, the inside diameter of the bore or the barrel.
And so 12 would be what? That's just decided by the manufacturer? Or does 12 represent something?
12 is the size by the manufacturer.
Okay. And you indicated that it's a slide action, is that correct?
Correct.
Can you show us how a person would load this particular weapon
Yes, I can.
without using real ammunition? Could you just walk us through
Absolutely. This is where the ammunition is loaded.
it? Is at the bottom of the weapon?
Is at the bottom of the weapon. It is pushed in. This here is the magazine tube, and there's a spring here. You can kind of hear it squeak as I push it, and you would push each individual shot shell in here until the magazine is full.
How many shotgun shells will this weapon hold?
I could review my worksheet to be able to tell you that.
If that would refresh your memory?
This particular one, I measured at being able to contain 7.
And is that 7 in the chamber with 1 in the, or is that just 7?
That is 7 in the tube,
Okay.
so it would be 8 if one was also in the chamber.
Okay, so it can hold up to 8 rounds at a time.
Correct.
So is it a cartridge case or is this called a shotgun?
This is called a shot shell.
All right, now once the shot shells are inside of the weapon, do you have to do anything else besides just jam them in there?
Yes, once they're in the tube, they're just ready to be loaded into the chamber for firing.
Okay, how do you load a shot shell into the chamber?
Just like that.
Okay, so that is the slide on the weapon?
Right, this is the slide. The
Okay.
slide, the fore end that
Okay.
slides.
Now, once there is a round in the chamber, is that gun ready to fire at this point?
If it were loaded, it would be ready to fire.
Okay. Do you have to pull that slide back one more time or no?
I do not. As a matter of fact, until it is fired, it will not slide unless this release, which is just a small lever here on the right side of the receiver,
Okay.
is pressed. At that point, if it's pressed and held, then it can be slid back or racked back again,
Okay.
which would eject the shot shell that was inside there and does not load another one in. It would remain open until that's racked back forward again.
Okay, so in order then to move the next shot shell down the chamber or down the barrel into the chamber, you would again have to slide the slide up?
Correct.
Okay. Now, is there a safety feature on this gun that tells you whether or not the weapon is able to be fired at that particular time?
Yes, there is. This is the safety that this Mossberg is equipped with. It's called a tang safety. That's because this is called the tang, the area of the receiver. It slides up and down. And the tang safety prevents the trigger from being pulled when it's engaged.
Okay, so if the safety's on, even if the weapon is loaded, you cannot pull the trigger because the safety prevents that from happening.
That's correct.
Is there anything on there visually that would tell me whether or not that safety is engaged?
There is. Right now you can see that it's all black. Even from a distance you could see that. But when the safety is off and ready to fire, there's a red dot, and that red dot indicates that it's ready to fire.
Okay, so in order for this weapon to be fired, you not only have to load it, but you have to rack it, and then you have to take the safety off of it.
That's correct.
Now, in addition to all of that, do you also have to pull the trigger?
Absolutely.
This particular weapon, did you do anything to it in terms of determining whether or not it just discharges on its own volition?
I did.
What did you do?
There's a series of tests that we run in the functionality of the firearm before we ever test fire it. And the first one is just cycling the action to make sure that it operates correctly. Following that, I manipulate the safety and see if that safety indeed prevents the trigger from being pulled.
In this case, did it do that?
In this case, it did do that.
Did this weapon function through the cycle like you told us?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
It functioned normally.
All right. Did you then, in fact, test fire the weapon?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what's the purpose of a test fire?
The purpose of the test fire is just to make sure that under the pressures of the shotgun, I can be able to testify to say that this firearm works the way it's supposed to.
Okay, and does this weapon work the way that it's supposed to?
Based on my testing, it does.
Okay, and what does that mean in terms of this gun? That it works the way that it's supposed to? What does that mean?
Well, it means that I was unable to make this gun fire with the safety engaged, with the safety on. And one other thing that I did as a part of that testing is what we call a six-plane safety check. That six-plane safety check is done on the firearm to see if there is anything that can be done to make that trigger or make the firing mechanism operate without pulling the trigger. And the way that test is done is with a small hammer. I tap on the 6 planes of the firearm, the top, the bottom, the back, the front, and both sides.
Were you able to get that weapon to fire?
I could not get that weapon to fire.
Now, in terms of the trigger itself, is there something known as trigger pull?
Yes.
The weight of a trigger pull.
Correct.
What are we talking about when it comes to that?
The weight of the trigger pull is the amount of force that's required to pull the trigger and send the firing pin forward.
In terms of a Mossberg manufactured weapon, do they have a standard for all of the weapons that they manufacture and send out for purchase across the country?
Yes, the standard is generally a range.
And what is that range?
The range for this particular firearm is between 4 and 9 pounds.
So does that mean that they will not sell it if the trigger pull is less than 4 or greater than 9?
It would not meet their quality control and they would send it back.
Did you yourself do any testing to determine what this specific weapon takes in terms of the amount of pressure that it, on the trigger that would cause it to discharge?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what do you do when it comes to that?
I used a digital scale that's specifically designed for measuring trigger pull.
Can you use non-digitized or weights?
Yes.
Like real live weights on it?
Yes, you can.
Is there a difference between the regular real live weights versus a digitized in terms of which is more accurate?
To my knowledge, I would say that there's nothing documented as far as why one would be better than the other.
What do you use?
I use the digital, and I use the digital because I can do repeated tests in the same manner in which the gun would be fired, pulling it straight back as a trigger would be pulled, and in my opinion, that makes that test more accurate. Whereas using the weights, typically gravity is allowed to help, because a trigger pull with the weights, weights are hung on a hook that is slid into here and laid on the trigger, and weights are added until the trigger breaks.
All right. And then once the trigger breaks, then that is breaking, meaning that the weapon is discharged.
Correct.
Okay. So in terms of the digital weight that you used, you literally are able to measure the trigger pull in terms of the gun being pointed forward as it would be presumably when it's being fired.
Correct.
Whereas with a real live weight, the weapon is inverted and the weights are hung from the trigger. And
That's
gravity
correct.
presumably helps.
Correct.
When you do a trigger pull test, do you do just one test?
I do 3, and then take an average of those, which is calculated within that digital scale that I have.
And what was the average of your 3 trigger pulls?
6 pounds, 5 ounces.
So it will require at least 6 pounds, 5 ounces of pressure on the trigger in order for that weapon to discharge.
Correct.
Let's talk now about your record number 3. Do you have that there?
Yes.
What is it that you received in terms of record number 3?
Record number 3 was a box of a box of 12 gauge shot shells, a package from the medical examiner's office that contained 3 pieces of plastic and 13 metal fragments, and also a 12 gauge fired shot shell.
All right. Now, in terms of receiving this evidence, what, if anything, did you do with it?
This evidence I classified, meaning I verified that there in container 2, item SS1, is a 12 gauge estate cartridge incorporated fired shot shell. In container 3, item A, 3 pieces of plastic that were consistent with being portions of a fired shot shell, components of a fired shot shell, which I classified as being an over powder wad and 2 pieces of a shot cup.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. Let's
Yes.
talk first about the fired shot shell. I'm going to show you what's been admitted as People's Exhibit number 22, and it's up on the screen there. Can you zoom in? Does that appear to you to be the same shot shell that you examined?
Yes, it does.
And can you tell us anything about this type of shot shell in terms of size, caliber, or anything?
This is, based on my examination, this is a 12 gauge shot shell. It is, you can't see it all in there, but you can see the CK. It's actually labeled as buckshot, number 4 buckshot, because there's different sizes of buckshot.
Is there a difference between buckshot and birdshot?
Yes, there is.
What's the difference between buck and birdshot?
Buckshot is generally a larger diameter
Okay.
and much fewer pellets within the shot shell.
Okay, so just so that I'm clear, let's talk about the components of an unfired shot shell. Can we do that?
Sure.
This plastic part here, this red plastic part, what is that?
That is called the hull or the shot shell.
This silver part of this shot shell, what is that?
That is the brass. It's called the brass, and that is actually the base of the shot shell that holds the ignition components.
Okay, so inside of this particular shot shell, and for the record, did you take one of these similar type shot shell and take it apart?
Yes, I did.
And what is inside of these shot shells?
Inside the shot shell, the first thing, the way that I take it apart is, if you can see where there's kind of some creases there at the bottom.
Here?
Yes.
Okay.
And then just a little bit further up, those crease pieces are actually folded into the shot shell that holds everything in. So just a bit below that, I have a tool at the lab that allows me to cut into that and go all the way around so that I can remove the pieces. The first thing that comes out when that is opened are the pellets and the buffer, which is just like a soft plastic material that's put in there to fill in the extra space where the pellets are.
Okay, now in terms of the pellets, do you know how many pellets are crammed into this little shot shell?
It is designed and labeled as 27 pellets in this particular one.
When you took apart the shot shell that you had, the one that you took apart, were there 27 in there?
There's actually 28.
Okay. So there has to be at least 27, give or take?
That's my understanding, yes. I've contacted the manufacturer and have not heard back from them.
Okay. Now, you also said that there's something called a buffer that holds these pellets together.
It doesn't hold the pellets together. It's a loose, like a powder or a flake, and it is simply there to fill in the extra space so that there isn't anything rattling around inside the shot shell.
Okay, so the pellets themselves don't take up all of the space that's within this red case.
Correct.
And what else besides these pellets and this buffer is in this particular shot shell?
There is a plastic shot cup that is, it has a circular base and then plastic sleeves that go up that form a type of cup. That cup is what holds directly the pellets as well as the buffer.
Where would that be located within this particular shot shell?
That is approximately in the middle.
Okay, so somewhere in this general area would be that white, is it like a clear or white plastic?
Correct.
Okay, so that wadding is what holds the pellets together?
Right, and holds them in the shot shell.
Okay. So when a shot shell then is fired out of that particular shotgun, what happens to the pellets that are inside of here, the shot cup, the wadding, and the buffer?
That is all propelled out of the barrel of the firearm.
Okay, so if you could raise that weapon for me and just show me. So when the trigger is pulled, this wadding, shot cup, pellets, and buffer all go out the end of the shot.
That's correct, out the muzzle.
What happens to this particular item, the shot shell? What happens to it?
That remains in there until the action is activated again to eject it.
Okay, and the action would be the movement of sliding that weapon down and back up again?
Correct. After it is fired, I no longer need to push this little lever here to release that. This will automatically go back after it's fired. So, and actually, if I pulled the trigger on an empty shotgun, it would do the same thing. I would be able to rack that back. So just for demonstration, the shot shell is fired, the buffer, wadding, and pellets go out the end and down towards the target. And then at that point, the shooter would need to eject that shot shell in order for it to be ready to fire again. They would rack that back and it would flip that out in undeterminable distance. I mean, it would throw that out, and then in order for it to be ready to fire again, the shooter would have to slide the action forward again, which would bring another from the magazine and load it into the chamber.
Now, in terms of what happens to the pellets, the wadding, and the shot cup once it leaves the barrel of the gun, can you tell us anything in terms of how quickly the pellets are going to spread out?
That is something that I can only provide rule of thumb without actually having tested this particular ammunition for that type of, for the spread. But what happens is that shot cup, and there's actually, below that shot cup is another plastic disc that sits on top of the gunpowder, which is actually down in the, we'll call it the upper part of the, where the plastic and the brass meet, would be where the powder charge is. That disc or over powder wad holds the powder in there, so that is also there. When all that goes out, the cup containing the buffer and the lead or steel shot exits together, and at some measurable distance downrange, the cup actually opens, allowing the pellets to go out. The pellets continue, and at some point those plastic pieces would fall to the ground.
Now, in this particular case, can you give us a range of where that would happen?
I cannot specifically without having test fired for such things. However, the general rule of thumb for buckshot is the pattern would spread about an inch for every yard away from the barrel. But that is something that is would be determined and affected by weather conditions, wind, the length of the barrel, the amount of powder charge. I mean, there's many factors that would go into doing that, so I can't really give you without having done those test shots.
Now, can you take this weapon that you have in your hands right now and similar make and model of this particular shot shell and do those testings at some later date?
Yes.
And have those results at some point in the future?
Yes.
To give more accuracy in terms of something closer or something better than 1 inch per every yard? 1 inch per every yard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But that has not been done at this point?
That is correct.
Okay, but it can be done in the future?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, in terms of the characteristics of, strike that, in addition to this particular shotgun shell and the one that you examined, did you compare it to the pellets and the items that were removed out of the body of Renisha McBride by the medical examiner?
I did. All the items that I removed from a new shot shell out of the box that was submitted was separated, and then I compared those components with the items that were presented from the medical examiner's office.
And what, if anything, were you able to determine in terms of the comparison between those two?
I was able to determine that the pieces of plastic were actually portions of the plastic wads, the overpowder wad, as well as the shot wad or shot cup. And I was also able to determine that 13 metallic fragments were also submitted that were consistent with being lead. However, the shape and damage of those precluded me from being able to say that they were anything specific.
Were you able to determine something called the grains of the pellets that were found in the dissected shot shell and compare that to the pellets that were found in the body of Renisha McBride?
Yes.
Okay, and what were you able to determine in terms of that comparison?
The new pellets for the 04 buckshot weigh 19.8 grains, which is a unit of measure that we use in firearms as opposed to ounces or grams. And what I did with the metallic fragments that were submitted, I took the largest one and weighed that one, and that one actually weighed 19 grains.
When a shot shell is fired and strikes the body of a person, what happens to those pellets once they pass through anything, particularly a human being?
Lead is fairly soft. It's soft for a metal, and routinely they're going to deform quite significantly after impact with really anything.
Is it surprising to you then that you are not able to say that the pellets that came from Renisha McBride's brain match these particular pellets?
I'm sorry.
Is it at all unusual then are you surprised by the fact that you can't compare the pellets found from Renisha's body and the pellets that are in one of these shot shells?
No, I am not surprised.
And that's because of the damage?
Correct.
Can you tell me anything in terms of the weight and characteristics of the pellets that are inside this particular shot shell?
Yes, those pellets are approximately 19.8 grains. There is 27 by manufacturer, 28 actually in the one that I opened. Generally, they put about an ounce to an ounce and a half of shot in one of these particular shot shells.
The number 4, does it have any significance in terms of the shot shell itself?
Yes, number 4 is the smallest buckshot that is currently manufactured. Number 4 buckshot, because of its diameter, which is the nominal diameter is 0.24, and because of that, obviously the more shot that they have in there for whatever purpose the buckshot is developed for. So this having 27 and the number 4, when you get up to like a 00 or a 000 buckshot, you're getting more in the range of 5 to 7 pellets.
Okay, so those are bigger.
Absolutely.
And is that what's commonly referred to as double aught? Is that the 00?
Right, the 00 is double aught buck.
Okay. Now, in terms of this particular weapon, can you tell us when it was sold?
Yes, I contacted the manufacturer based on the serial number that's on the receiver, and was able to determine that this firearm was manufactured in October of 2008, and it was shipped with both a pistol grip and a regular buttstock.
Now, showing you what's been admitted as People's Exhibit number 50, and directing your attention to the middle object here. What is that?
That is a standard buttstock for a shotgun.
Now, you indicated that this gun was manufactured and shipped with both the butt and the pistol grip. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is there any way to tell whether or not the gun was sold with the pistol grip on it or with the butt itself?
The manufacturer couldn't tell me that specifically, and my examination, looking at the bolt that would need to be removed, I mean, I could not tell to make a determination if it was shipped this way or with that stock on it.
Now, is there a difference in terms of if I want to use this weapon for home defense? Am I going to use it with this particular stock, or am I going to use it with a pistol grip?
That really depends on the person that's operating it.
What are the differences in terms of firing this weapon if I've got the stock on it versus the pistol grip?
Having a long stock on that allows the firearm to be fired from the shoulder, which is how shotguns were originally designed to be fired. That enables you, as the shooter, to actually engage the sights and be able to put your shots on target with accuracy.
So, for example, if I wanted to use this particular weapon to hunt for a deer, is there a sight on this particular weapon?
There is.
And if I have this butt on it, I would literally put this butt up against my shoulder, bracing the weapon?
That's correct.
And I can look through the sight to aim up with my target?
Yes.
And then, if I'm a good shot, presumably pull the trigger and kill the deer?
Correct.
Okay. A lot of variables there in terms of my ability to shoot. This particular weapon with a stock on it, is it going to have quite a bit of recoil on my shoulder if I'm using this stock in this weapon?
Yes.
How much recoil are we talking about? Is it going to knock me on my butt?
Some people it might.
Okay.
I can tell you that based on my training, especially in State Police Recruit School, you would routinely be bruised after
one
firing.
single shot?
Absolutely.
And what causes that kickback or that recoil on this particular weapon?
The amount of pressure that that is caused when that powder is ignited and it's sent down the barrel, that pushes it back.
So in terms of this particular gun, when I pull the trigger, is there an explosion within the weapon that causes that shot shell to send out the pellets and the wadding and the cap and all that other stuff we talked about?
Basically what happens is when the firing pin strikes the primer sparks and lights the smokeless powder, and as that smokeless powder burns, it expands the cartridge or the shot shell, and that expansion is what propels everything out the barrel.
Leaving the shot shell casing or hull, as you called it, within the weapon.
Yes.
And it's that explosion that causes that recoil or that kickback into my shoulder.
Correct.
Now, in terms of a pistol grip, does it still have that same amount of explosion or that same amount of force?
The pistol grip doesn't change the force. It's only going to change your ability to manage the force.
All right. Now, in your opinion, is the pistol grip going to make managing the force more difficult on my hand than it would be on my shoulder?
Absolutely.
And what causes that? Why is that?
There's just nothing for me to use to brace to be able to manage that amount of power that comes back. Whereas if this had a long stock on it and I was able to put it on my shoulder and hold it tight, I know that I can control that. However, if I'm shooting this with a pistol grip, I wouldn't typically bring it up high to try and engage the sights because I know that this is going to have a substantial recoil towards me.
So if, for example, I have the weapon up here at shoulder height with a pistol grip on it and I pull the trigger, is that gun likely to perhaps strike me in the face?
It certainly could.
And if it strikes me in the face, it's going to leave at least some sort of mark.
I would think it would hurt.
In terms of home protection, is there any theories in firearms that a pistol grip is better versus this stock?
Objection, Your Honor. I think that's speculation. I'm not sure whose theory, and I would ask that.
He's an expert. He's been qualified as an expert. I think he's allowed to give his theories, particularly in terms of the difference between a pistol grip versus a stock, particularly in home defense. I mean, you're going to use a pistol grip to go, well, I'll ask you, you're going to use a pistol grip to go hunt for a deer?
I wouldn't.
And why is that?
Because...
Your Honor, I would still object. You haven't ruled yet, and she's still asking questions.
Well, I haven't. It's a different question than I objected to.
That's why they're saying it is a different question. Okay, and I think she saw me hesitating, her answers if she's going around that thing, right?
Not necessarily, no, but I was trying to lay maybe a better foundation for my question.
You're doing a better job doing it.
Thank you. So now, in terms of, if I'm going to hunt for a deer, I'm going to use something like this, right?
That's what I would do,
If
yes.
I was serious about hunting for a deer, I would use something like this.
Yes.
Okay. And I wouldn't use the pistol grip because you've indicated that there's less ability to be able to sight and less accurate.
Correct.
Now, in terms of home defense, do you need to be able to use a sight?
Home defense would typically indicate area that's much smaller. Typically when one chooses a weapon for home defense, they want to be able to maneuver it and operate it within their home. Oftentimes people will replace a pistol grip for a long stock because to be able to get around corners of their home or in tight spaces, having a gun that sticks out this far is going to possibly create problems with walls and things like that, as opposed to one that that you can hold back closer.
Okay, so now in terms of a pistol grip, does that make the weapon shorter?
Yes, it does.
And does it make it more maneuverable in tight spaces?
Yes.
Now, can you tell us anything in terms of if a body is struck in the face with this particular weapon using that same particular type of ammunition, how far a body would recoil?
That's something that would have way too many variables to be able to give an estimate for.
In terms of whether or not there was a screen door between the victim and the shooter, can you tell us whether or not the type of weapon and the type of ammunition would cause a screen to be knocked out?
In my estimation, not having shot a shotgun through a screen door, the pressure and the power coming out would most certainly knock a screen out.
You indicated that there were 3 pieces of plastic that you received from the medical examiner.
Correct?
And that would be the wad, is the cup? Is that what it's
The
called?
shot cup?
The shot cup and then wadding.
Correct.
Are those 3 pieces consistent with what's inside those shot shells?
Yes, they are.
And in terms of stippling, are you familiar with the term stippling?
Yes.
What is stippling?
Stippling is a powder burn that typically happens on clothing or on skin out to a distance that would need to be determined through specific distance determination testing.
Okay. Now, the stippling, is that caused from the explosion of the gun with the ammunition coming out the barrel?
Generally, yes, in a roundabout way. When the gun is fired and everything is propelled out there, there's always powder that is burning or unburned powder that typically creates the stippling.
In terms of a screen door being between the weapon and the victim, would you still expect to see stippling if it was close range?
Having not tested it, I couldn't say for certain, but I would believe if it was close range, there would still be stippling.
A screen, so it's your opinion that a screen would not stop all of the stippling?
Correct.
What about soot? Does that work the same way?
I would say so, yes.
I would move now to admit the amended Exhibit 48 as well as People's 49. I haven't done so already.
No objection, Your Honor.
So moved.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Now, the gun, the shotgun you're holding, that Mossberg 500, there is nothing illegal about it.
No.
That is legally owned by homeowners across the country.
And readily available, yes.
Correct. And there's nothing that's been tampered with on that. That's not sawed off, is it?
No, it is not sawed off. It is, it appears to be the way it would be from the manufacturer.
Okay. And that, is there, you spoke a little bit on direct exam about the safety feature
Yes.
on this gun. Is there any way, if you know, that safety was on or off at the time of the shooting?
I have no idea.
Okay. Is there any way to go back and figure out if it was on or off by somebody like you?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. And do you have any idea if that shotgun was already loaded on the day of the shooting?
No, it was submitted to me completely unloaded.
So let's say, in your expert opinion, if the safety's off, the gun's already loaded and racked, would that gun without the stock be subject to non-intentional shooting?
Not without a finger on the trigger.
Okay. And if that is slammed against a wall, could it go off unintentionally?
Based on my testing, this particular firearm would not.
And why do you say that?
In my six-plane safety check, I was testing for just such an occurrence. Not necessarily slamming against a wall, but a failure of the mechanisms within the shotgun to prevent the gun from going off when the trigger isn't pulled.
Okay.
I was not requested to do any testing in regards to drops or anything like that, so I did not. I don't know how this would function if it was slammed against a hard surface.
Okay. So it would be your opinion it's possible for that gun to go off unintentionally. Because you haven't done the testing, you don't know if you can or cannot.
And based on my testing, without pulling the trigger, this gun would not go off.
How about if it's dropped? Do you know?
That I cannot tell you.
So it could be. It could go off unintentionally if it's dropped.
Theoretically, I guess it could.
Have you examined the scene of the shooting?
I have not.
Is there a reason you don't go and look at the scene?
If generally we're requested as the State Police Crime Lab to go to a scene that they want us to go to.
Okay.
So other than that, I would know nothing about this until the evidence is received by the lab.
All right. Would you be, if the prosecutor didn't ask you, could you go to the scene to look at what the area looked like?
My job as a firearms and tool marks examiner is to examine the evidence that comes to me. If I'm not requested at a crime scene, I would not go to a crime scene.
Okay. But would it be helpful?
It could be.
Okay. In this case, you know that the shooting took place on a porch, correct?
Yes.
And that somebody could have been inside the house, correct?
Correct.
All right. Do you know, besides the photographs, do you know the distances of the porch?
I have no idea.
Do you know how tall the screen is?
I do not.
Do you know how tall the decedent is?
No,
Do you know how tall Mr. Wafer is?
I do not.
Do all of those factors play a part when you're looking at firearms evidence and trying to reconstruct what happened?
If I was trying to reconstruct what happened, absolutely. Those would all be important.
All right. And the prosecutors never asked you to do this?
I was not asked to do any reconstruction whatsoever.
Why do you have two different reports on 2 different days?
Initially, when all the evidence was submitted the first time, and I called and spoke to, I believe it was the officer in charge, in regards to what exactly was needed in this case, having no knowledge of what the case was at all. At that point, I was advised that there was no need to examine the fired evidence.
What does that mean?
They didn't need me to do any classifications or anything on it. on the fired evidence because that was not in question. The question was how the firearm itself functioned.
Well, let's go back because I'm not quite understanding that. So the officer in charge is Detective Sergeant Gurka. Is he the one you spoke with?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And what did he tell you, that there is no need to make sure this is the weapon that was actually used?
No.
Okay.
With the shotgun, typically the fired evidence, the evidence that is retrieved from the scene, from the body, is going to have very little, if any, identification value for me to be able to identify it back to a specific weapon. So when I saw the evidence that was submitted, I contacted the investigator to find out exactly what types of exams were necessary. Because when we do exams on this evidence, if it was necessary to determine if the fired shot shell was fired in this shotgun, I can do that.
Okay, so let me stop you there. In this case, did you do that?
I did not.
So we have the shell, correct?
Correct?
And do we know if that was the weapon that was used to fire the shell?
Not based on any examination that I did.
Okay. So there's no forensic evidence that is being presented to say this is the weapon that was used to kill Renisha McBride.
All that I'm able to say is that this particular firearm functioned in the way that it was intended to, and the fired evidence that was submitted to me is consistent with the unfired evidence that was submitted to me.
How many cases, firearm cases, when there has been a shooting, have prosecutors or law enforcement asked you, let's make sure we have the right weapon. Let's do that identification, do a test where you fire a shell and check that the stippling is the same, or the rifle marks, I mean.
When evidence is submitted, we go strictly by what the submitting officers are requesting. That's our contract, our submission request.
Okay.
When there's things that we look at that there's not much that we would, what is the question that you're trying to answer? Because that's what this evidence really means. What is the question that you're trying to answer with this? Which was, at that time, is that gun going to go off unintentionally? Which is why I examined this. But at that time, I was not given any requests to identify the fired evidence back to the shotgun, because my understanding was that was not the question that needed to be answered.
Okay, and do you know who determines the questions that need to be answered? The officer in charge?
I would assume that he's obviously involved.
Okay.
But I would also assume that the prosecutor's office and whoever else he counsels with would also play a role in that.
And so did Detective Sergeant Gurka call you, and this last report is December 17th, that's yesterday, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did he just call you and ask you to do this report?
I was contacted by the prosecutor and
When was that?
asked... I'm sorry?
When was that? What date?
I believe that we had some email communications, maybe back on, might have been the end of last week,
Okay.
just asking questions as to what I could do with evidence with the other stuff that wasn't examined the first time around. And at that point, I indicated that, in all likelihood, I can classify the fired evidence, and I was asked to do so. And I told her at that time that if the evidence was returned to me right away at the beginning of the week, I would do everything within my power to get it accomplished before today.
Okay. And do you know that another firearms expert has done tests with the gun, the shotgun?
I was advised that the defense has retained an expert and that he's conducted his own tests.
Okay, and then you did the additional test after the defense expert did the test, correct?
That, I don't know who did what, but
Okay.
I know that, that I returned this evidence to Sergeant Gurka myself, maybe 1 o'clock yesterday.
Okay. And did the prosecutor ask you to look for what the trigger pull is on that shotgun?
Yes, and that was in the initial request where we had discussed testing the trigger pull. However, this may well have been my mistake not getting it clear from the prosecutor, because typically we don't report out in our conclusions what the trigger pull is. I have it in my notes from my first examination. However, I did not report that in there.
Why not?
It's just not something that we typically do.
But it's
because it is a
something-
range. It's not an exact thing. There's a range of numbers.
So the trigger pull can be a range of numbers, correct?
When it's manufactured, it's shipped out, and it just needs to fall within parameters from the manufacturer.
And this is not something you typically put in your firearms reports?
Unless the trigger pull is specifically requested and needed for that case, we do not typically test the trigger pull.
Even though you do your own tests at the lab, you don't put it in your report?
Actually, as far as the trigger pull is concerned, unless we were specifically asked to measure the trigger pull, we usually don't.
Are there any other tests you perform on this shotgun that are not in these two reports that we have? One from November 6th of this year and another one from December 17th.
Not that I conducted on this shotgun, no.
All right, and I heard you testify that you have some written notes regarding your testing.
No, I have my worksheets, yes.
All right, so you did do firearm worksheet notes?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you do it for both tests?
Yes.
Both reports, okay. And do you still have those firearm worksheet notes?
Yes, I do.
Okay. At this time, Your Honor, I would just ask the court to preserve those notes so the defense can get those on later time. Motion for discovery?
Yeah, I don't have any objection, just remind me.
Okay. So could you just keep those notes?
Oh, yeah, it's a part of the case record.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other documents that you have that aren't contained in these two reports?
The only other documents that I have are electronic. I mean, I have photographs of the evidence as I received it, and my comparison to the new shot shell, and that's really the extent of what I have. That's a part of the case record.
I have a question about the muzzle of that Mossberg shotgun.
Yes.
If it is right up against the screen of a screen door, known as the screen, would that make a difference in if the screen door would come off with the shot than if it was further back?
Having not tested it, I couldn't tell you. However, when the projectiles come out of the muzzle, they come out, I believe these shot shells are reported at 1,300 feet per second, which is pretty considerable. It may be hindered, but I still think that it would, it's going to damage the screen, obviously.
Okay, when you mean damage, create a hole in the screen maybe?
Sure.
Okay, but not necessarily taking the screen off the hinges?
Not knowing how the screen is put in, I could not give you an estimate on something like that.
Okay, so in this case, you don't know for sure if it was the actual shotgun blast that caused the screen to come out?
No, I would have no way of knowing that.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
In terms of the safety on this particular weapon, were you ever able to get the firearm to discharge while the safety was turned on?
I was not.
In terms of the owner having possession of this weapon, let me ask you this first. If the weapon is loaded with all the shells, does it have a significant difference in weight in terms of the shell case, the shells, and adding weight to the gun? Now, would the owner be able to know whether or not this weapon is ready to fire?
The only way that you might be able to know is by looking inside the chamber, and you may be able to see, you saw the shot shell was red. You may be able to see that through there, and you may be able to see it through the bottom. But other than specifically looking to see if it's ready to fire, you would not know.
In terms of that safety, you can tell because you can see that red mark.
Correct. When the safety is off, there's a red dot.
Now, in terms of a reconstruction, you were asked questions about whether or not you were asked to do a reconstruction. Remember those questions?
Yes.
What is a reconstruction?
A reconstruction would be basically an attempt to, using the evidence that we have and the photographs and so forth, to make assumptions as to how the incident occurred.
Now, in this case, if you were asked to make a reconstruction, would you need to know first where the shooter is standing when the weapon is fired?
Yes.
Would you need to know how the weapon was positioned in terms of if it was up here by the shoulder, down here by the chest, or down here further by the waist?
That would certainly be helpful for an accurate reconstruction.
In addition to the other things that defense counsel asked you about in terms of the victim's height, the defendant's height, the height of the screen, you would also need to know those other factors, those other variables.
Yes.
In terms of the weapon and whether or not it was tested to see if this particular shell came out of this particular gun and if this was the particular gun that was used to kill Renisha McBride, do you remember that series of questions?
Yes.
If a person admits to ownership of the weapon and to doing the shooting, would it make any sense for you to then retest it or to test it?
No.
Now, you've indicated that typically you don't do a trigger pull.
Correct.
In this case, it was specifically requested.
That is correct.
And you've indicated that the question that was immediately wanting to be answered was, does this gun just discharge on its own?
Correct.
Okay, so prosecution and the police come to you and say, here's the weapon, we need you to do this test to tell us the answer to this particular question.
Correct.
During the course of a case, would you be or could you be asked to do additional testing as the case develops?
Sure.
In terms of the trigger pull, that was requested immediately at the outset of the case.
It was.
It was not put into your report because that's something that you just don't usually put into the report.
That's correct.
And in this particular case, you filed an amended report because I asked you to do it.
Correct. You asked me to actually put it on a report so that it could be part of the record.
And that work was completed way back in the first part of November.
Correct. I did not even open the packaging for this firearm yesterday for this exam.
I have nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
May I see where that safety is?
Yeah.
So, it's the back, and then you push it up.
Correct.
Can I do that? You push it up like that.
Correct.
All right. Does that, there's a little red, is it a bulb in there for the safety?
It's just an indentation that's painted red.
Okay, that doesn't glow in the dark. Does it?
I don't think so.
All right. So if you're in a dark house in the middle of the night, it could be possible not to see if the safety's on or off.
It could be possible not to see that the safety is on or off.
All right. And that if you're in the dark, would it be hard to tell with that type of safety if it's on or off?
Depends on your familiarity with the weapon. Generally, these safeties are this type. You push it up to fire, and I guess I'm familiar enough with it where I would know that this one is ready to fire.
Okay, how about an inexperienced gun owner?
May not have that experience or knowledge to be able to tell that without seeing it.
All right, and then how about in your years of experience, have you ever worked on a case where somebody took the safety off unintentionally?
Not that I was aware of.
Okay. There's just a few more things. Oh, you were talking about reconstructing the actual shooting, and you said there are certain factors you need to know. One is where the shooter was standing, correct?
Correct?
One is where the decedent was standing, correct?
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay. There are some times, though, that you have to be the detective and figure out those things, correct?
Sometimes.
And you're able to do that, aren't you?
And provide an opinion, but not necessarily an accurate one. In saying that I can, a reconstruction would be necessary, if I'm going to give a reconstruction that is, that I would be proud of,